But enough about. So that's basically the box office. Not a lot of
Mhm.
surprises.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
though, speaking of things that are surprises,
Yes.
we're going to get our classic movie of the week out of the way pretty quick because th- I stumbled upon this while I was poking around Max because I re-upped it for last week's classic review,
Hmm.
the
Man on Fire.
Man
Yeah.
on Fire. And I stumbled across this and I was like, you know what? We haven't ever delved this far back into the past for our classic movies before. Let's give this a shot.
Yeah. This movie's older than the two of us put together.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah. So we watched The Man Who Came to Dinner from 1942, 41, 42, somewhere around there.
Yeah, sources seem to differ, but I think it was 42.
40. Yeah.
Um, this is what I believe what they call a comedy of manners,
I think you're right. Yeah.
where it's basically you have kind of upper class people who are dealing with like a weird circumstance, or and it's just like it's very okay. So this movie is very simple to explain. Uh,
Yeah.
so you have Mr. Whiteside down here, who is like the biggest radio guy in the country,
Hmm.
which he has a very refined English acting voice, so it's understandable that people would tune into him.
Yeah. He kind of like Orson Welles.
Yeah, that's what. Thank you. I was trying to think of like that guy who was the Shadow.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, yeah, like so yeah, he's doing one of his tours, and like they make a big deal that he gets like what $1,500 a show or something like that, or
Yeah, that was a good chunk of money back then.
yeah,
Yeah,
heck,
yeah.
$1,500 for a night's work. That's pretty good now.
No, that's true. Yeah. But yeah, so he's in a town in Ohio for an engagement, and he's invited to dinner by this wealthy older couple. The the guy, the husband, doesn't really want anything to do with him, but the wife's all really excited about it.
So you know who was the one who wanted the invite to happen.
Right. And so Whiteside's they meet up at the train station, and Whiteside's there with his secretary, who's played by Betty Davis. Who's most known for All About Eve. She had the famous line, "Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night."
Right, and also you'll notice that Betty Davis here on this movie poster I found is huge, 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 huge. While the
Yeah.
titular Man Who Came to Dinner himself
It's
is very tiny in the bottom corner.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Well, Betty Davis was the bigger star, the biggest star in the movie, so it
Yep.
makes sense.
So, anyways, and like they're sniping at each other the whole way there, and it's just like, okay, dude, at what point do you just say, you know what? Here's $10. Go down to the town diner. don't
Yeah,
don't don't get the soup. Get
yeah.
but no.
Um,
So they go home. They go to this guy's house, and
mhm.
as they're going up the stairs, Mr. Whiteside slips and seems to break his hip.
Yes, and he's stuck in a wheelchair, and he can't leave the house for the foreseeable future, which includes spending Christmas in at this place.
Yeah, so I guess this is also an out of season Christmas movie now for
Yeah,
us.
yes.
So you would think, like, where this movie is kind of a surprise is you would think that the conflict would be between the homeowner and Mr. Whiteside,
Mhm.
because like very early on they have that because Mr. Whiteside is running up these $800 telephone bills in
Yeah,
1942,
yeah,
and he's threatening to sue the guy for $150,000 of lost income
yeah.
and everything.
Yeah, which I actually did the calculation in today's numbers. That would be about $3 million.
Oof, I was guessing 2 million. Wow.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and you have all these people who are coming by to visit the great Mr. Whiteside.
hmm
Um, but but the owner of the house actually vanishes for like the next hour plus of movie.
Yeah, yeah. It doesn't become that anymore, and then then the movie focuses on Betty Davis's character as she meets a local reporter who's kind of like the one of these like oh shucks kind of guys.
Yep, very
Uh,
corn-fed type.
yes, yeah. And he's written a play that he wants Mr. Whiteside to read, and of course, then he and Betty Davis start to, or he starts to court Betty Davis, and they start to really like each other, and it starts to look like that she wants to marry him, which would mean that she would no longer be working for him, and he decides to sabotage the relationship.
Yep, by bringing in a big actress who, I guess the assumption is that she will sweep the country bumpkin off his feet, and he'll realize, oh, well, I could have her instead.
Right. Yeah. Which I remember you were talking before after we watched the movie that it's kind of weird that they would all assume that he would do that.
Yes, including Betty Davis's character. Like,
Yeah.
like maybe that's just the big city people just assuming, oh, of course you'll plow any field that's put in front of you.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh, and also Jimmy Durante is in it as a relatively minor character.
Yeah. He has a small but memorable role.
Yeah, but like the thing about this type of comedy is that there isn't a whole lot to analyze outside of was it funny or not.
Yeah. Parts of it were pretty funny.
Yeah, like let's see who played Mr. Whiteside. Monty Woolley did a really good job of being a extremely arrogant and egotistical man of means or man of
Mhm.
culture.
Yeah.
Uh, he like even when the lines weren't actually that funny, the way he delivered them elevated them a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. He kind of reminds me of Fraser Crane in a way.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Yeah, but very similar personality.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I admit my attention was kind of drifting because at parts of the movie, it failed the "Did I feel like getting out my phone?" test a few times.
Yeah, it gets very meddling in the middle of the movie when they start bringing in all these other characters that aren't really all that consequential. And
Or even interesting.
yeah, um,
Like
and
even Jimmy Durante's character Banjo is only memorable because he's a womanizer one, but also two, he's Jimmy Durante.
yeah, 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 and yeah, it's. We should probably note that the movie is based on a play.
Right, which makes a lot of sense about how it's shot because most of it does happen in the same drawing room.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, although I'll give it credit for one thing. It doesn't go too zany or over the top during the climax, which tends to happen with a lot of comedies of this type.
Right, right. It doesn't go all like Blazing Saddles where it starts breaking the fourth wall and
Right, yeah, or like it's a mad, 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 mad world where it's just the with the fire truck and everything. But
I've never actually seen that movie.
oh, really? It
Uh,
might be on Paramount Plus.
Okay.
I don't know which version of it is on Paramount Plus. That's the question because there are like 3 or 4 versions of that movie.
Hmm.
Uh,
Can January be Jimmy Durante month here on the critique corner? We'll find out.
yeah, we'll find out.
Because I
Yeah,
know he's in that one too.
yeah, he's at the beginning of the movie. Yeah, he sets up the whole thing.
And of course, the people of our generation will probably know him as that guy who sang Frosty the Snowman.
Yes. But yeah,
Yeah.
this movie was. I mean, I would say probably for the time that it came out, it was. I'm sure very fairly popular. But it's
There
definitely
were
a product of the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there were definitely a lot of pop culture references that I just knew I wasn't getting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also, Eleanor Roosevelt is featured on the phone at one point. We could not find any evidence that it was actually her on the phone.
Yeah. It probably wasn't.
Probably wasn't.
Yeah.
All right.